Good morning. My name is Sindhu Ramachandran, and I am the Chief Division of Election Security and Technology, Bureau of Elections for the Commonwealth. Today is Tuesday, January 16, 2024, and the time is 10:23 a.m. On behalf of the Secretary of the Commonwealth, I would like to welcome all of you to the functional examination of Dominion Voting Systems Democracy Suite 5.17 electronic voting system, and take this opportunity to explain the guidelines that we will be following. First, it should be noted that the Secretary of Commonwealth is holding this examination pursuant to the provisions of Section 1105AA of the Pennsylvania Election Code 25 PS 3031.5A. Second, the examination of voting systems are not subject to the requirements of the Sunshine Act. Nevertheless, the department has determined that it is appropriate to invite the public to observe the functional examinations. Third, this examination will be conducted pursuant to Pennsylvania Election Code. The department has entered a contract with SLI Global Solutions to perform the examination. Mike Santos of SLI will lead the examination for SLI. Following the receipt of SLI's findings, the Secretary will issue a report that shall be filed in the Bureau of Elections. Fourth, the public demonstration portion of the functional examination will be memorialized on video. Because the video will constitute the record, it is essential that the camera be always accorded the best view of the screen. This may make it difficult for members of the public to see clearly what is occurring at that time. Your presence is welcomed primarily as an opportunity to observe the nature of the process as a whole. Copies of the public demonstration video will be available for public viewing. We do not permit anyone else to record the examination proceedings. Due to the potential for divulging proprietary and sometimes sensitive information about the system during the examination, our recording is the only recording permitted. Fifth, we will not permit spoken questions or comments from our guests. After the public demonstration, we will be moving on to test cases that the examiner will execute to confirm that the system meets the election code requirements. Members of the public can stay as observers for that part of the examination. There may be occasions where proprietary information must be shared by the vendor with the department and examiner. If that occurs, all members of the public will be excused from the room. After the proprietary information has been shared, everyone will be invited to return to the room. In order to capture an accurate record of the proceedings, it is imperative that all members of the public follow these guidelines. Persons failing to conform to these guidelines will be asked to leave the room. Please turn all cell phones to silent mode during this examination. Thank you for your cooperation. A representative from Dominion Voting Systems would be performing a demonstration of their system now.
I'm here today as a representative of Dominion Voting to provide an overview and a process demonstration of how voters access and vote on the Dominion ImageCast voting system. What I'd like to show you is how the system begins. Elections don't just happen on election day. There's a lot of work that goes into elections, a lot of preparation. One of the things occurs in the elections office where the ballot definitions are set up, where the database is created, where the ballots are created and thus distributed to outside printers or printed in-house by Dominion Voting Systems printing system. This is our server. All of the things I mentioned in the beginning are done here. They're done in-house by the jurisdiction, and then the media is provided to the election officials and then put into the voting systems for the capture of the data with all of the ballot information and data presented to the voter. We're going to start by showing the process by which voting occurs. This is a simulated voting station or check-in place at the polling station. The poll workers would be attending this table. The voters would come in here and qualify to vote, sign in, and if they're voting in a traditional optical scan voting method, they would be given the ballot that they are entitled to vote on, that they would be hand marking. In a voting booth, a privacy booth such as this, they would use a Sharpie, either an ultra fine point or fine point Sharpie, to hand mark their ballot. Once they are finished, they would proceed to the ImageCast precinct voting device, enter their ballot in where it would be read. I'm going to show you how that process works with some ballots that I have already prepared for the voting process. The ImageCast 2 rests comfortably on a secured ballot box. The ballots are deposited into that ballot box once they are marked. As I mentioned before, the media is already inserted. There are 2 media devices there for redundancy and protection. At the end of the night, those are retrieved. They're returned to the elections office where the votes are all accumulated, tallied, and reported. From the voting standpoint, as a voter has marked a ballot, places it into the device, they can put it in by any orientation, upside down, face first, however they want. That was a valid ballot. It was successfully cast. The process that's happening in that is that the votes are being validated. They're being looked at to make sure that the marks are solid and easily read. And then the image is captured in an indelible fashion and returned to the media device internal to the system. This is a write-in ballot. Someone has chosen to write in candidates. We have the ability to capture the write-in votes just as we would the regular votes. It's scanning and casting it and depositing into the ballot box. This is a blank ballot whereby someone got the ballot, did not make any marks, and is trying to cast it. And I will turn it upside down just so you can see the orientation differentiation. The ballot is put in. And I should also mention there's a screen by which the voter can review the instruction sets, and this one says quick review, blank ballot detected. As you will note, the green cast button has lit up as well as the red return button. The voter has the option, as specified in the instruction set, to either cast the ballot, because some voters want to have their vote record updated but don't want to vote for anybody, which is their right, or if they wanted to vote, they can return the ballot and then take it back to the privacy voting booth and mark it accordingly. I'm going to put it in again and demonstrate the cast vote action of this particular vote process. So I'm going to cast the vote. So that voter's vote has been cast with no votes, but their voter history has been updated. This is what's called an ambiguous mark. Not everyone fills in the ovals completely or clearly. Sometimes people check, sometimes they put a dot, sometimes they put an X. What we want to do at Dominion Voting is to make sure every voter's vote is captured correctly and their voter's intent is registered. So we have a process by which we can identify if an oval is not filled in completely, that vote will be identified to the voter to be filled in more completely so their vote is fully recognized. So as a voter, I put my ballot in. It gives me an identification of the ambiguous mark. It identifies by race where the mark was noted. In this particular case, it is the judge of the Court of Common Pleas. So for the voters' security and also their ease of use, they know right where to go when they remove this ballot, and they can see where that ambiguous mark is. They can proceed back to the privacy booth, fill it in, and return it for their voting. On this particular ballot, I have an overvote, whereby someone voted for more than what they're entitled to vote for. If they were to cast that vote in traditional voting systems, they would have lost that vote. And again, we do not want that to occur. We want every vote to count and be recorded for each voter. So I place that ballot in, and as before, the instructions and the announcements here say you may have overvoted in this many contests, number 1, and it tells which contest was overvoted. I still have the option to cast if I'm in a hurry and want to to leave, I can certainly cast. That one particular race would not be counted, but everything else would. Or I can return it, recognizing where the overvote occurred, get another ballot. This one would be considered a spoiled ballot at the polling station, remark my ballot, and place it in. And I'm going to go ahead and cast that for the purpose of this demonstration. Now, we also have an accessible voting process by which someone from the accessible voting community is able and capable of voting on the same exact device as everyone else is. This is called an audio-tactile interface. It's got Braille, it has colors, it has shapes. So not all voters are non-sighted. In fact, the majority of accessible voters are able to vote in the manner similar to standard voters. But for the convenience of the voter, we have a number of methods by which they can identify how to cast their vote. We also have sip and puff devices. We also have styluses that can be used. We also have paddles that can be used in whatever manner is necessary for that, to accommodate that voter. This device is called the ImageCast X Ballot Marking Device, or BMD. This serves two purposes. One, as an accessible voting station, as I just mentioned, and the other is a standard voting station. In this particular sequence, a voter would have a card generated by a poll book or by the Dominion ImageCast activation device. They would get a voter card that would activate and bring the ballot up on the screen on the ImageCast X, so that the voter is only entitled, just like with the paper ballot, to vote on only those races and issues that they're entitled to vote on. I will demonstrate that now using the voter card that was pre-activated. The beauty of this is only the ballot that is the voter can vote on is seen. When this card is removed, that information is also removed, and those cards are reusable. This will take a minute to walk through because we have a number of different voter options on here. One is to vote in English or to vote in Spanish. As the voter, I'm going to select Spanish, and all of these things can be handled by the voter. They do not need the interaction of a poll worker. We've set this up to show the ballot representation here, which is a configurable. Not every jurisdiction chooses to do this. For the purpose of this demonstration, we wanted you to see that it shows the ballot, which is called a uniform ballot, and it looks exactly like the pre-printed ballot with everything that is shown on that ballot, so that they can see exactly how the ballot will appear in the same form, same fashion that every other voter votes on. I'm going to start my voting process. This brings up the actual ballot where I'm going to cast my votes. It's very large, easy to see. It's large print. I can use a number of the banners at the top of the device as device options for the convenience of the voter, such as voter selection of language. If there are multiple languages accessible or available to the voter, I can, as a voter, make a choice to have Spanish or whatever language is utilized. I also have a text size button, for not every voter can see as well as the other voter. So I can enlarge the screen by hitting the large button, and it will change to a very large print, which allows me as a voter to have better recognition of what I'm trying to vote on. I also have a view button. Again, not all voters can vote in color. Some are colorblind, some have macular degeneration, some have glaucoma. So we have the option of having a black on white ballot or a white on black ballot. What we've tried to do, of course, is to give as many options as we can to make the voting experience as positive and pleasant for the voter, so that when they leave the polling place, they say, I had a good voting experience, I was able to see everything, I was able to vote the way I wanted, and leave feeling confident and comfortable in my experience. This is a touchscreen device. By touching anywhere in that bar, I can place my vote, which puts a big check mark in the block. I can not overvote because those other candidates or those other options or issues are blanked out or grayed out. But if I make a mistake, I can deselect by touching it again and making another selection. I'm going to move to another screen, make my selections. Again, I can't overvote, but I can deselect and reselect. As I move through, there are some banners that appear to indicate if I have not voted. If it's a vote for 3 and I've only voted for 2, it will tell me in a banner, you have only voted for 2 of 3 candidates. Just as a reminder, it does not require you to, just so that someone recognizes it's a multi-vote contest. Once again, I can change any of these things interactively. I can change the text size at any time that I'm in the voting process. This is a large vote for 15. And as you'll see, I'm voting for only a few. And here is the header that says this contest is overvoted. It has a little warning, color warning icon on it, just to make sure that people were able to recognize that 15 contests can be voted. But it's their right and privilege to vote for only what they want. I'm going to continue through the process. The system does require you to go through. You can review your screens at any time by hitting the skip to review to go back and check what you've reviewed, but you cannot print your ballot until you have gone to the end of the ballot. And again, much like with the paper ballot, you want everyone to see everything that's on the front or the front and back. You don't want a voter to only recognize what's on one page and then try to close out their vote and cast their vote. So it does require to go to the very end, at which point it allows you to print your ballot or go back to the ballot to review. In this case, I'm going to go back to the ballot. I'm going to review. This contest was blank. I'd like to vote on it. I'm going to vote and then go back to my review. And now I've decided it's time to print my ballot. I'm going to, there's a to finish the voting process warning on here, or a fail-safe message. To finish the voting session, do not forget to print your ballot after reviewing all contests. Once again, to make sure that the voters always vote the way they intend to vote. I'm going to print my ballot. Again, one more fail-safe warning. You can either print your ballot or review your choices. It says there are some warnings detected on your ballot. You cannot make any more changes after printing the ballot. In this case, I'm satisfied that I've done everything as planned. I'm now going to print the ballot. It will be generated by the attached printer, which is underneath. And I might add this voting booth, this voting station, is used by a number of precincts or a number of jurisdictions in the state of Pennsylvania. It folds up, it locks, it's all self-contained. So when the polls are being set up, the poll workers open this up, put the privacy screens out, hook everything up, and it's all self-contained. They don't have to bring multiple aspects of the voting or components of the voting system in separately. This says, thank you for voting. Your ballot is successfully printed. Please hand your activation card to the poll worker. I'm going to remove the ballot. This is called a QR ballot. It's slightly different than the uniform ballot, although we can generate the uniform ballot from this device. So in this particular case, for differentiation, this lists all of the selections made with the contest header and the selection by name, as well as any write-ins. It also has a QR code that's read in the same scanning device the voter would proceed to in the precinct and scan their ballot. And as you can see, and I'll put this ballot in as well, you can see that the uniform ballot and the machine marked ballot can both be read by the same scanning device. At the end of the evening, the media is removed from this device or this device, and brought back to the central count center at the courthouse or at the elections office. Those are all uploaded, they're read into the server, they are thus accumulated, they are then tallied, and at various points or junctures as required, reports are generated and distributed to the proper places. One of the things that people talk about in voting, of course, the election day and the precinct voting is not the only method that people vote. Absentee voting is very popular in our country. A lot of people mark ballots that they are sent by the jurisdiction. They mark them and send them back in envelopes where they are taken in, they are recorded, and they are processed. For the purpose of this presentation, this is not an election day process, but this is how someone who sends their ballot in or brings it in by hand to the elections jurisdiction, how those votes are counted. Very simple. It's a high-speed scanner. Those votes are scanned using the same software, the same methodology, the same design as our precinct-based scanners. They are read, and the results, there's an electronic outstacking process for any unique ballots or any ballots that need to be adjudicated. Those are read into the server and then placed in with the other accumulated totals for the tally and the reports. And that's how the process works from the start on election day through to the end. But keep in mind that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. But for today's purposes, we wanted to focus on what the voters are doing and how they're using the precinct-based elections equipment and vote counting devices.